So, speaking of this case, what are your thoughts on the parents being charged? All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Ron with BPMF, and I am joined by
Todd Nielsen.
Todd Nielsen.
Yes.
He doesn't like it when I call him the Todd Father.
Everybody calls me the Todd Father, but, whatever.
We are joining you from the basement of the Freedom Facility. So if you hear an echo, that's because we're afraid there's going to be a nuclear bomb dropped anytime now.
Yes.
We're prepared.
And it's so well hidden, you'll never find it. Guarantee it.
All right. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about a couple things. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Oxford shooting out of Michigan, the Oxford High School shooting. We do know the name of the shooter, but we will not be saying the name of the shooter in this video once. And the reason for that is there's a lot of theories out there on why mass shooters exist, and there's a lot of experts that say it's because of media notoriety and them wanting to get their face on the newspaper and all the stuff that the media does a wonderful job of obliging them to. So we're not going to be a part of that. We wanted to take a second and give a shout out to one of our favorite organizations that actually coincidentally, we got a text message asking us to help. It's Fight Back Nation. And what Fight Back Nation does is Fight Back Nation goes into schools and teaches school personnel how to fight back against active shooters. Teachers, custodians, lunch ladies, school administrators, administrative secretaries, everybody. So it's a pretty neat team. Todd and I are members of that team. We're also joined by the amazing Patrick.
Oodle!
Well, I was going to let you say his last name because I was going to butcher it. You call him like Oodle Loop or something. But, and so you know that the tactics that's taught there is spot on. But, they have a PowerPoint presentation that was put together by, unfortunately, the late David Costa. Unfortunately, because it's the late. Great presentation. As well as he's come up with a technique to disarm school shooters. So it's real neat. If you have any questions, check them out at fightbacknation.com, I believe.
I think it's com, yeah.
Google Fight Back Nation. You'll be able to find it.
You can't miss Fight Back Nation. It's pretty awesome. They're also on the Instagram and all that stuff under U Tactical.
And Fight Back.
Yeah, and Fight Back.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
So another thing we wanted to let you know about, which was on our Instagram, was there is a deal going on with Utah right now.
Yes.
Utah is doing some pretty awesome stuff to be proactive, actually against suicides.
Yes.
And so Utah is now giving everyone I believe it's a $200 rebate every time you buy a safe. So check that out.
That's almost free then.
It depends on the safe. Some safes, that's like the tax. So,
well, yeah. Two of my safes are that would cover the tax.
Yeah. So check out our Instagram feed. I've got all the information. I believe it's going to expire here soon, but they had it going on in 2019, and we just barely found out that it's going on now. Yeah. So one of our friends that we know, the first time I met him, we were speaking with the legislators about this specific thing, about encouraging people to be responsible by dangling a carrot in front of them instead of forcing them. So in this case, rewarding good behavior by giving money back. So encouraging people to lock their guns up in their safes. One of the major things with this Oxford shooting, one of the ways this could have been completely stopped was if the parents would have locked their firearms up.
Yes.
The problem that we need to recognize as firearms owners is if we're not responsible with our firearms, then the anti-gunners are going to get the legislators to force us to do things. And when legislators force people to do things, it's way worse than if people just do it on their own. So we encourage, if you're into guns like we are, and all of our kids have been through firearm safety, firearm basics, understanding of firearms. I've got firearms that are going to be my son's guns someday, but they're not his now. He doesn't get to, just do whatever he wants with them. If he wants to, hey, Dad, can I look at this gun? Sure. Make sure it's safe. Make sure you can look at it in a safe environment. One of my friends, he actually built with all of his boys, each one of them at like Trexton's age, like 6, 7. They built their own AR-15s.
Awesome.
But these boys, they were with their grandfather, and grandfather did something that was almost a little unsafe, like kind of almost lasered somebody or something like that. And these little 6, 7-year-old boys are yelling at their grandfather.
Well trained. I like it.
And so, you know, we encourage, if you're going to own firearms, teach your kids, keep them secured, keep them away from your kids until you're in a safe environment to be able to use these with your kids.
Yeah. Going back on the legislative stuff, you know, coming from California, I literally saw from, you know, being anybody could own an AR-15 to only select people could own AR-15s, and then you can only own it if it had this modification, and then this modification, and now this modification, and now this modification, and this modification, and it just doesn't stop. You know, so here's the reality. You know, if people are saying that the Utah state government is saying that you need to lock up your guns, well, here's the reality. Why would you want your firearms out in the open for anybody to discover or anyone to get a hold of?
Right.
You know, I've been to young children's funerals that have gotten a hold of firearms from police officers, and it sucks. You know, and simply putting them in a place where they cannot get to them is what's necessary.
And we've talked about you know, all of this quite a bit. And because I'm on camera, I lost my train of thought. I had this great thought. Well, okay, so we talked about it. Like, my son around a gun, I wouldn't have any worry about my son being around a gun.
Yeah.
Whatever. He doesn't care. He doesn't like guns. It's not his thing. However, if his daughter's over at my house, I could very easily see my son going, "Hey, look at this gun." And when you get a couple of kids together,
yeah,
you never know what dumb things they're going to do. Of course, his daughter would thump my son for it, but another kid.
No, you're supposed to clear it like this.
So I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, you know, because I was thinking about the Rittenhouse thing, and, you know, I'm like, man, there's no way I would send my son into a dangerous situation with a rifle. I'm like, I'd be right there with him, you know, and then you'd probably be right here with me. And then I was like, if I had to pick one of your kids to, like, pick the other side, I would so be your youngest.
Yeah, she's a little fighter. She's definitely a little fighter. You know, and the reality is, like, at my house, literally, I could take a pistol and I could put it on the kitchen table and it would collect dust because nobody would touch it. And unless it was mom's gun, then mom would touch it. But if it's mine, everybody knows you just leave it alone and it is what it is. You know, and that's because they've been trained. They've been taught how to handle it, how to work around it, and how to be around firearms and everything else. They can tell you, I mean, even my youngest, my 8-year-old, she could sit there and rattle off what the 5-core firearm safety rules are. At least my
yeah, I was like, you're gonna have everybody on the team if you haven't been through a class.
Yeah, if you haven't been through an NTAC class or a BPMF class, then you don't know what the 5th one is. So you guess you're gonna have to attend. Come find out, because it's actually very warranted, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at the big picture of everything. But that reality of the firearms that I don't use on a daily basis, yeah, they're locked up in a safe. That includes my kids' firearms. I mean, even my 19-year-old's, his AR, his pistols, they're locked up in the big safe. And to be honest with you, I'm the only one that has the combination to it. So without it, they're not able to get to it. You know, mama knows where it's written down and mama knows how to get into it, but she doesn't get into it that often. So, you know, that's just kind of the reality of it.
So I've talked to different people, and they're like, well, why should we have to do this? Or why should we give in to the anti-gunners? Or why should we do this? And to me, I make the case more for the moderate people. There's a lot of people that don't have strong opinions one way or the other, but when they see firearms being used irresponsibly,
correct,
that turns them into anti-gun people. So
right.
The more that we can step up and say, as a gun community, this is what we need to do. We need to safely secure our firearms. We need to not allow our children to have unlimited access to the firearms, especially at high school age, you know, until they're old enough and responsible enough to be able to handle that firearm and make those decisions.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and if you want to leave a firearm stationed or secured or put around somewhere around your house and everything else like that, and you're the only one that knows about it, other than you or your spouse, cool, I'm good with that. However, you need to understand that if somebody gets a hold of that pistol that's not supposed to, or that firearm that's not supposed to, you and you alone are 100% legally on the hook for whatever happens with that firearm from that point on.
So, speaking of this case, what are your thoughts on the parents being charged?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a minor.
So
they're responsible for what that minor does within their house. They allowed that firearm to be accessed. Sorry.
Right. And
Charge them.
there's a lot of information, and neither one of us believe everything in the media 100% for some weird reason.
Yeah.
So I take a lot of that with a grain of salt, whether they, knew that he had made threats towards the school and done these social media posts and, were supposed to respond to the school to come pick him up because he'd been suspended. There's some stuff like that may or may not have happened. But ultimately what I go down to is you allowed your child who has some discipline problems at school unlimited access to a firearm. That sounds irresponsible to me.
Right. Well, and to be honest with you, I'd push it even as far as knives, pepper spray.
Well, to me, I'm like, think about it. If they bought their their kid a freaking bottle of Jack, let him drink it, said, "Here's the car keys," and then he got into a wreck. And,
yeah,
it's almost the same thing. It was an irresponsible decision.
Right, and it's the big part about it is you are responsible for the firearms in your house as the parent, as the adult. So be responsible for it, and if the state wants to give you a couple $100 for buying a gun safe, cool.
And I think that we as taxpayers and voters should support those legislators in those decisions.
Yeah. In those decisions. Now, if they're sitting there saying that we're going to take this away from you because it looks dark and scary and evil, no.
That's why I said this specific little itty bitty area.
Yeah, and literally, I've been down this road with California laws, and as a law enforcement officer, it sucked because, one day this is illegal, then the next day this is illegal, and the next day this is illegal, and it does not stop. It just continues and continues and continues until all of a sudden you don't have any Second Amendment rights. And look at the crime waves that are happening everywhere in California. Well,
everywhere.
I take not everywhere, because the rural areas, they still take care of their own because their sheriffs are different. However, you look at the major metropolitan areas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and all their surrounding areas, they have major crime waves going on right now, and the citizens are not allowed to defend themselves. That's a reality. You have a duty to retreat in the state of California. If you want to go down that road, continue voting like the Californians do. Make sure that you know who it is that's going into office, and make sure that you know how they're going to vote. And if they don't vote the way that you want them to, impeach them. We have that ability here in the state of Utah. Anything else? Should I get off my high horse now? Did I say everything that you didn't want to say?
I'm good. I'm good with it. No, thank you all for joining us. Like we say every time, please, if you have any comments or anything you would like us to discuss, or you have questions about, or you would like us to do a video, put it down in the comments below. If you think we're wrong,
put it in the comments below.
Give us a good argument in the comments below of why we're wrong.
So. I'd love to hear something that's counter to our thought process.
So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Go ahead.
Have a good day and be kind to each other.